How do you split decision between you, the CEO, Michael Kirkham, the managing director, and Lance Hewitt, the principal engineer, who has the final call?
It's a bit of a democracy there. Ultimately, we're guided by the music, and the music will be the final decision maker. So, yeah, there are some things, like in the technical sense, Lance is the absolute lead. He will guide where we go technically. I'll provide a bit of input there, but ultimately we listen, and the listening will tell us what the right answer is. But ultimately, yeah, it is a bit of a democracy. So we will decide democratically, but I think it's pretty clear when you hear the result, when the music is really speaking to you, it's obvious.
Is every one of you golden ear?
I don't like the term golden ear. It implies something that is unique and not everybody has. And I think if you use that term, you separate yourself from the market, because I think everybody has the capacity to hear what we're hearing in these products. So yeah, I wouldn't separate us as being any different from anyone else in that regard, but it's how well the music captures you emotionally. And we make some changes with the product. We try different components and different ideas. And sometimes all it takes is 3 or 4 bars of a piece of music and you'll hear it. Other times it's so close that you need to sit down, you need to listen to a piece of music for an extended period of time. But ultimately, I think everybody has the capacity to hear what we're hearing. There's no real golden ear.
You all have been in this field for such a long time, so you have a lot of experience in this field. So how did that affect your daily decision?
Daily decisions? I think it takes so long to develop these products at this level. I mean, it's pretty easy to build an amplifier. And as you get to higher and higher performance, everything becomes critical. So it's a long, slow process, and it's not something that happens on a daily basis.
Which distortions are the real music killers? Intermodulation distortion, transient intermodulation distortion, crossover artifacts, power supply unit, noise, or something else?
It's an interesting question. They're all problematic for different reasons. We have distortion that is immeasurably low. So any one of those things will be problematic. Power supply is the foundation. You don't get the foundation right, then nothing else built upon that will be good. But I wouldn't say would it be crossover distortion? You know, that creates sort of the appearance of phase shift as you cross over. You have this sort of non-linear time-based issue around the crossover point. It might be intermodulation for me. The other issues create problems, but for me, intermodulation distortion is probably the killer, because if you play 2 notes and you get intermodulation distortion, you get sum and difference products. Right. So you're creating ghost notes in the mix that aren't actually there. And with a complex piece of music like jazz or classical, you're throwing these notes all over the place. So that would probably be a bigger killer for me than the phase issues which affect sound staging associated with crossover distortion.
Where do measurements stop being predictive and listening becomes essential?
I can only speak from our perspective. And from our perspective, we didn't measure because we trusted our ears. When you get to the level of distortion or lack of distortion that we have, almost everything matters. And so to be measuring on a daily basis for us didn't make sense, because almost anything can change that. So for us, we went straight to listening.
What listening methods do you trust most? ABX, short AB, long-term swaps, musician panels?
For me, it's listening to a piece of music and actually engaging with the music. So AB doesn't work for me. You know, there are some times that you put a piece of music on and you can just hear instantly. And you know for a fact that it's not what you were listening to previously, because it grabs you, it engages you. And you can do that with a couple of bars of music sometimes. But generally for me, I like to listen to a whole piece of music. And I think it takes a while to engage with the presentation of a piece of music and how emotionally connected you are with it. So for me, it's a longer period of time, and then I'll play the same track again later.
Equinox is described as a completely new preamplifier design based on Eclipse topology. What was missing in typical flagship preamp?
Yeah, we looked at the DM8 and the DM10, which were Halcro's previous amplifiers, and we could have started there and improved that circuitry the way we did with the Eclipse, but we found that the input stage of the Eclipse was just so good that we used that as the foundation. So we built around that for the preamp, because, you know, we were already way ahead of where the DM8 and the DM10 were in terms of their line stage amplification. So that was the natural place for us to start.
Why a two-box architecture for Equinox? What interference are you isolating?
Clearly the electrical interference to start with. We've got a switch mode power supply operating very high frequency. So we wanted to isolate that electrical noise. The best way to do that is in a separate chassis. But also when you've got a switching power supply, it creates mechanical issues within the case. So we also wanted to separate those. And to the point where we've even got mechanical damping inside the case. The sides of the case, top and bottom, are also damped with some materials that will reduce those resonances. So we've got both the electrical separation and the mechanical separation on top of the damping that we provide in the chassis.
So what kind of materials do you use for the damp?
We're using brass. Brass is a great material. The copper content's great for transforming, mechanical vibrations into heat. And the case is braced at strategic points so that we reduce those resonances.
Equinox has no built-in phono input. Was that a purity decision?
We've already covered that point. Yes, there is a separate phono preamp coming, and that particular design would have been completely compromised to put it in a case with any other electronics. So we're aiming for something that has a noise floor that hasn't been seen in the industry. But beyond that, I really won't say any more about what we hope to achieve with that product. It's a little bit too early for us to make claims.